You want a war? You're gonna get one.
Forget the lies, the money. We're in this together and through it all. They said nothing's forever, and they refuse to see the change in me. Why won't they wake up? Come on, come on, come on. Let's get it out. Move to the music, play that fucking music. Live through my music, yeah.
Back once again, soldiers. Reliving the War episode 248. We've got Raw coming from Madison Square Garden tonight in New York City, while Nitro's in Denver, Colorado. New Blood Rising happens later in the week, and my blood will be rising when watching the pay-per-view, I'm sure. Hopefully you'll come over so we can all point and laugh at WCW, because I am so done giving these guys the benefit of the doubt for every single pay-per-view. I know we'll have one or two decent matches, so yay. Kevin Nash is in the building tonight, Goldberg's also here, and Scotty Steiner's in the parking lot beating up a cameraman. Good stuff. On SmackDown this past week, Mick Foley forced Triple H, Stephanie and Kurt Angle to team up against the Dudley Boyz and Lita. Kurt saved Stephanie from getting wrecked, Stephanie scored a pinfall win, all while Triple H was busy at the entranceway. Kurt and Steph shared a hug, which Hunter didn't appreciate a single bit. And Raw kicks off this week with Stephanie waiting for Hunter to show up to the Garden. Maybe Triple H has now realised he married a stinky dirty hoe. Also on SmackDown, Chris Benoit pinned The Rock in a tag team match after Shane McMahon hit the Great One with a chair. Shane now believes Benoit's owed a WWF Championship match at Summerslam, so we'll be hearing from The Rock to kick off Raw, while Nitro begins with the Young Dragons taking on the Dark Carnival. Mark Madden points out that we've got a mud pit set up at Nitro tonight. I wonder what that's going to get used for. Tank Abbott came out to provide commentary here. Remember, the Young Dragons are facing 3 count in a ladder match this Sunday, and Tank promises he's going to sing at the pay-per-view.
That's going to be a good little piece of business.
There's a ladder set up for this 6-man tag on Nitro, although this isn't actually a ladder match. And we start off with a fantastic powerbomb from Vampiro to Jamie-san, but Noble comes back with a somersault senton to the outside. It doesn't take long for the Young Dragons to set that ladder up. That's one big ladder, ladies and gents. Kaz climbs up while Vampiro's let out on the mat, and oh my god, splat. That's a Wile E. Coyote bump right there. Damn those Acme ladders. In comes the Great Muta as the Demon gets rid of the ladder. Kaz avoids a handspring back elbow even though his face has been squished deeply into his head. In comes Jung and he avoids a sunset flip by headbutting Muta's nutsack. But the Young Dragons do the JOB after Vampiro and the Demon deliver the love gun and the nail in the coffin respectively. Muta delivers the green mist and Jung gets pinned after a moonsault. The Stinger shows up after the bout and he single-handedly takes out the Dark Carnival, meaning he's probably going to have no problems at all against the Demon this Sunday. He then calls out Bill Goldberg for a fight, but Bill got himself in a little scuffle with Big Papa Pump and Kevin Nash in the backstage area. But Scotty does end up walking down the ramp and he says Sting's going to need to figure out a way to get this lead pipe right here out of his asshole, because Scott's fixing to lodge that bad boy right up there. What follows is Scott annihilating Sting both outside and inside the ring. So let's get this straight. The Young Dragons look bad before New Blood Rising because they got pinned. The Dark Carnival looked bad because they were easily beaten up by Sting. Sting looked bad because he was easily beaten up by Scotty Steiner. So that's 7 people in total looking in poor shape before the pay-per-view, while Big Papa Pump reigns supreme. Makes perfect sense. The Rock understands that Shane McMahon wants Chris Benoit to get a title shot at SummerSlam, but instead of waiting until the pay-per-view, Rock wants to defend his belt against the Crippler right now on Raw. Benoit and Shane come out. Benoit says everyone knows he beat Rock at Fully Loaded, but Chris will beat Rock again tonight to become WWF Champion. Shane grabs the microphone. He wants to show everyone a replay of what happened on SmackDown. He says Benoit will leave MSG tonight as WWF Champion, but there's going to be an extra stipulation. Shane wants this to be a no DQ match. Rock says fine, it doesn't matter because this will give him a chance to whip Benoit and Shane's candy asses all over New York City, if you smell what the Rock's cooking. Mick Foley's office now consists of a forklift. It's practical, it's comfortable, and it's also well decorated. Kurt Angle thinks he should get a title shot at SummerSlam. Mick thinks this could be a good idea because, after all, Kurt's a very enthusiastic individual, seeing as he cried tears of joy when he won the Olympic gold medal. He dropped to his knees when he became King of the Ring. And the way he swept Stephanie off her feet on SmackDown this past week was also pretty enthusiastic. Kurt still maintains that he and Steph are just very good friends, though Mick is going to take Angle's request under advisement.
Alright, it's true.
And speaking of Stephanie, her husband's just arrived to Raw and Triple H tells Steph he needs space. This is the same thing Stephanie said to Hunter on SmackDown. The game wants to know where the commissioner's office is. Steph says it's parked right over there. So Hunter goes off to find Mick Foley, and yep, you guessed it, Triple H also wants a title shot at SummerSlam. Mick says Kurt Angle just beat him to the punch, but the commissioner didn't promise anything. And hey, Mick understands how Hunter must feel. First Angle takes his wife, then he wants to take his spot. If Mick was Triple H, he'd be really angry right now, but just because Triple H kicked Foley's ass in the past, Mick will also take Hunter's request under advisement. Triple H goes to his locker room, Steph wonders if they can talk right now, and Hunter's not in the mood. He's angry that Kurt requested a WWF Championship match, and Stephanie's like, so? And all this does is piss Hunter off more. Triple H says if he sees Kurt Angle in the building, he's going to kick his ass. So Stephanie pays Kurt a sneaky visit and she gives Angle a heads up. Kurt wonders if Hunter raised his voice to Stephanie, and Angle thinks that no good Triple H needs some sensitivity training. I fully agree with Angle. Triple H needs to chill out a bit. In our next Raw match, X-Pac takes on Rikishi while Ernest Miller cuts a promo on Nitro. So it's the Bronco Buster versus the Stink Face, a pair of balls smashing in your face versus losing your face up another man's fart box. Why people keep trying to perform sunset flips on Rikishi's beyond me, and it's becoming the new Billy Kidman powerbomb counter. But X-Pac does avoid danger and he then performs the Bronco Buster. This isn't enough to keep Big Rikishi down, and Road Dogg watches on in the back as Kid falls in position for the Stink Face. The DOGG then laughs when his DX partner gets two gigantic ass cheeks shoved deep into his little face. But Road Dogg isn't all that bad. He still runs out to stop a banzai drop with a low blow, and therefore we have a DQ finish here in our Raw opening match. Road Dogg and X-Pac are still trying to figure out who the better singles wrestler is between the two, but they're still united in beating down Rikishi after the bell. Too Cool did not show up to help Rikishi either, which wasn't very nice of them at all. Ernie Miller, once again, says he's taking control of Nitro tonight and he wants law and order. He wants Nash and Goldberg to stay far away from each other, and if they don't, they're both going to jail. You get locked up for anything these days. As for Scotty Steiner, seeing as he loves sticking his pipe up people's ass, seeing as he likes using his lead pipe weapon to inflict damage on people while threatening to put it up their rear end, Miller's booking a Steiner vs Sting pipe on a pole match, bro. I mean, isn't the pipe already kinda like a pole? Have we gone so far as to book pole on a pole matches? Miller wants to dance to close out this promo, but here comes Lance Storm. He's got so many belts he doesn't know where to put them. Lance says it's time for Ernest to book the match Lance deserves. Lance wants to hold every singles belt in WCW, so Lance wants Booker T and he wants the World Championship. Miller doesn't want to give this guy anything, but he does want to see Booker T kick Storm's ass. So yes, Lance Storm versus Booker T for the world title will happen tonight. Mark Jindrak and Sean O'Haire got a shot at Chronic's tag team titles. The boys took a lot of punishment from Chronic, including a full Nelson Slam, the Meltdown and the High Times, but the newcomers took it all and O'Haire pulled off his Swanton Bomb. His Swanton Bomb. Still, Chronic looked like they were going to win it when they set up their nerve-wracking Doomsday device, but they ended up getting attacked by the Perfect Event and the match got thrown out. What's notable here is that Jindrak and O'Haire teamed up with the Perfect Event to deliver a post-match beatdown, but here comes the Filthy Animals to help out Chronic. Juventud slips in the ring before they too beat Chronic up. It's getting a bit excessive here, isn't it? The MIA run down to finally provide Chronic with a little help, but the Animals managed to steal the tag team championships. This won't be tolerated by the MIA, and the faction announced they are going to help Chronic get their belts back in a post-match promo. The Misfits may not like Chronic, but they sure do respect them, though Major Gunn says her mission tonight is to strip Miss Hancock in that mud pit we saw earlier on. Next on Nitro, we've got Buff and Judy Bagwell versus Kanyon and Pamela Paulshock. On Raw, the Right to Censor take on the Dudley Boyz. So Kanyon was originally supposed to team up with Tori Wilson, but Tori didn't want to do it. Kanyon found Pamela in the backstage area and he dragged her to the ring. So we have some heavy hitters in this one, folks. Pamela Paulshock and Judy Bagwell. Mark Madden also points out the same thing I mentioned last week. Why on earth does Buff Bagwell keep dragging his mom to Nitro if she keeps getting tormented by Kanyon? I mean, in this match alone, she gets punched right on the neck, and look at the bump she takes. I don't expect great things at all, if I'm honest, but it's still pretty funny. Pamela's had enough of her tag team partner, she smacks him in the face, and so Kanyon brings her in for a Kanyon cutter. Mean Gene Okerlund, Pamela's knight in shining armour, runs down to the ring and he delivers a low blow to Kanyon. This allows Buff to perform his blockbuster for the 1-2-3. Chris is giving this positively Kanyon thing a really good amount of effort, so that's good to see. The crowd also went crazy for Mean Gene. Could have done without Judy Bagwell and Pamela Paulshock, but regardless, this was still pretty fun. Silly, but still fun. Someone who doesn't like having fun is Stevie Richards. He's out here on Raw banging on about fighting the good fight and making the WWF a more wholesome place for entertainment. The creatures are once again in the audience trying to rally the fans up, but Stevie ignores them while challenging anyone in the back to come out for a tag team match. Out comes Bubba Ray and Devon. Bubba says it's time for the RTC to get put through a table, and so the match gets underway as the fans chant "We want tables." They are not chanting "Save the hose." This match featured the Dudleys saying "was up" before their signature headbutt for the very first time. They actually do this twice as both Buchanan and Godfather take the move. And for you young cats who have no idea what this is about, the whole "was up" thing was used in Budweiser commercials.
Hello? What's that? What's up?
I know most of you will remember this, but I'm imagining the few viewers out there who see this in Dudley matches while wondering what the hell's going on. The Dudleys went after a 3D to Buchanan, and just to get the whole "was up" thing over, Stevie Richards also takes the headbutt, and the boys then get a table as they look to put Stevie through the wood. Unfortunately, Godfather and Buchanan come to the rescue and the Dudleys get taken out. Stevie then leaves the ring to grab some creatures, and the girls get brought into the ring where the Godfather ends up putting Victoria through a table. Pimpin' ain't easy, ladies and gents, and fuck, what a powerbomb that was. It is good that the WWF are pushing the right to censor though. This could have been another one of those ideas that quickly fizzled out after a few weeks, but thankfully they're getting featured quite well and there's a lot of potential storylines this faction can get involved in. Too Cool and Eddie Guerrero take on T&A and Val Venis next on Raw. On Nitro, we're going to look at a Vince Russo interview. That no good bastard Val Venis took Eddie out with a piledriver before the match got underway. This meant Too Cool were at a disadvantage, but they still took control of the match when it became clear that the ref wasn't going to enforce any kind of law in this one. Scotty got Venis in position for the worm. Once upon a time, Val Venis was obsessed with his worm, but now he's getting one dropped on him while laid out on the mat. Albert comes in with a pump kick that puts Scotty in his place, and the Grandmaster looks like he's out of the match too when he gets dropped on the ring steps. Scotty looks for a tag, Chyna gets on the apron and she holds her hand out because that's totally allowed in any tag team match. In comes the ninth wonder of the world in her high heels and she lays waste to everyone in the ring. This doesn't last long though as Mr. Venis runs in with a big old clothesline. And as T&A get to work on Chyna, the production staff think it's much more important to focus on Trish rather than the action in the ring. Too Cool fight with T&A on the outside. The referee follows these guys out. Venis delivers his fisherman suplex, but while he's covering Chyna, Eddie hits Venis with a frog splash. Chyna pins Venis and the babyfaces win the match. Again, a pretty fun match, totally inoffensive, but I still have a problem with generic bad guy Val Venis. Can someone please remind me why this guy's the current Intercontinental Champion? Is that belt enhancing Venis, or is Venis enhancing the belt? Okay, so on Nitro, we've got a pre-taped Vince Russo interview. I was going to play this in its entirety, but it's a full 5 minutes long, so I'll summarise what he said with a few bullet points instead. Russo said the interview had to be re-recorded. It was originally going to air on Thunder, but he said a few things about Bash at the Beach which didn't get past WCW's lawyers. He said he will talk about what happened with Hulk Hogan one day, but for now he's not allowed to talk about it. I believe this is actually true. He said the WWF peaked while he was working there. He saw WCW as a challenge and that's why he left New York. No mention of McMahon wanting him to write SmackDown, which caused Russo to feel burnt out. Russo mentions the old guard of WCW didn't want the young lions to break through. This happened a lot during Russo's first stint in the company during 1999, but he now feels this has currently changed. He says the WWF saw WCW as a joke. It was an ATM machine paying out big money to old talent who phoned in their performances. Young guys never got a break in WCW, which is something Russo wanted to change. So we've now got Booker T as world champion, and WCW is now in the place it needs to be. Russo is committed to pushing the young guys. Russo came back to WCW willing to do anything he could to help the company. He didn't want to be a TV character, apparently, but he got on TV because he felt it would help WCW. He wrestled matches against Ric Flair and what have you because it was, in Vince Russo's mind, beneficial for the company. Russo once told Tony Schiavone that he was done being on TV after the Flair rivalry wrapped up. Vince says he'd like to stay away from TV from this point on, but he does challenge John Rocker to a match at Starrcade. Who cares? Russo says he doesn't care about the current TV ratings. He says this is now the starting point for WCW to build upon, which I found hilarious, seeing as Russo's now been involved with WCW for close to a year. Yeah, he had a long break in the middle, but still. He says he's given the young lions a platform. The focus is now on cats like Booker T, the Filthy Animals, Billy Kidman, the MIA and what have you. It's now up to them to make the most of it. Russo's confident that the current roster can bring WCW back to the promised land. He takes a small shot at Goldberg. This was actually Russo planting a seed, by the way. He says there's a match at New Blood Rising where he likes two guys but doesn't like the other. This other guy's talked about going into business for himself at the pay-per-view and beating the other two guys up just because he can. But Vince says this person will play ball and the finish of that particular match will be what's best for the company. On a side note, it actually blows my mind how many people think what happens in that triple threat match was a shoot. This interview's all the proof you need, but we'll get to all that this Sunday at New Blood Rising. In short, there's a lot of stubborn or maybe misplaced confidence right here from Vince Russo, and I don't know if he genuinely thinks the WCW product really has a chance of being competitive against the WWF, or if he's just saying what he thinks WCW diehards want to hear. Do you remember Just Joe? Yeah, probably not. If you tuned into Sunday Night Heat, you'd see him a bit more frequently, but this newcomer, who once upon a time teamed up with Edge before signing with the WWF, used to stir the pot between superstars, which would ultimately lead to guys having matches. But tonight on Raw, he's here to stir the pot between Triple H and Kurt Angle. He tells Triple H that the boys in the locker room think Kurt Angle might be the guy who can finally overthrow the game and overtake him as the WWF's top dog. And he tells Kurt Angle that not only has Hunter been disrespecting him, but he's also reduced Stephanie McMahon to tears. Kurt deeply cares about his best friend Stephanie, of course, and this is all going to come to a head when Stephanie heads to the ring to cut a promo. On Nitro, we've got the pole on a pole match, Scott Steiner versus Sting. So Stephanie comes out and she says she wants to publicly apologise to her husband. She's sorry for getting carried away during her SmackDown celebration, but there's really nothing going on between Steph and the studly Kurt Angle. Hunter's been cool with Stephanie ever since SmackDown went off the air, so Steph wants to apologise to Hunter right to his face, and hopefully this can all get squashed. Out comes Triple H, and Stephanie tries to explain why she's been acting this way recently. It's because she's jealous. The crowd start chanting bullshit as Stephanie goes on to say she loves Hunter and she can't bear the thought of Hunter being with another woman. Triple H takes a moment to think about it. He swigs on his water because it makes him think a little better, and he goes ahead and gives his wife a hug as the crowd boos. Now that the personal stuff's been sorted out, it's time to talk business. Hunter can't get angry here, he has to keep his cool. Stephanie calls Kurt Angle to the ring and the game freaks out. Old Kurt has a smug look on his face as he walks down to the ring, and you just know he's playing Triple H and Stephanie like a fiddle. Basically, Kurt says he and Steph got caught up in the heat of the moment. Angle respects Steph, and all he thought about on SmackDown was his friendship with Stephanie and how sacred her marriage is to the one and only game. Hunter's not buying it. Stephanie may be naive, but Triple H is most definitely not. As a matter of fact, Hunter says Kurt's full of shit. Stephanie pushes her husband away from Kurt. She says Triple H has to remember that business is business as Angle smiles behind Stephanie's back. Stephanie wants Triple H and Angle to shake hands, but hold up folks, here comes Mick Foley. Gotta point out here too how much the audience is into this promo so far. They have cheered, they have laughed, and they have played along with everything up to this point. They chant for Mick as the commissioner gets inside the ring. Mick says he's sorry to break this little threesome up, but before anyone shakes anyone's hand, Mick wants to show a replay from SmackDown, and that's because he wants to see Triple H and Kurt Angle beat the hell out of each other. Foley's going to stop all this nonsense by booking a Triple H vs Kurt Angle match for Raw tonight. The winner's going to get a shot at the WWF Championship at SummerSlam. So there we go, this should all get sorted out by the end of Raw. Fantastic promo here from everyone involved, thoroughly enjoyed this one. Kinda makes it tough switching over to Nitro, but here we go. Lead pipe on a pole match. Sting starts off strong with chair shots on the outside, and inside the ring, Sting goes upstairs for some aerial offense. He tries this one too many times though, and Scotty catches his opponent out with a belly to belly. Steiner line, elbow drop, Scott covers Sting and the referee counts even though you need to grab that fucking pole to win the match. We continue on with an exploder suplex from Big Papa Pump, and when Sting begins his comeback, the referee gets taken out. We do not need a referee bump, ladies and gents. The only way you can win is by grabbing the lead pipe, and we had chair shots just a few seconds ago. Out comes Rick Steiner, and Rick grabs the pipe. He takes a stinger splash, the lead pipe falls out of his hand. Scott grabs the pipe and the referee sees it in Scott's possession. So Steiner wins an awful match. As the Steiners lay a beatdown into Sting, Kevin Nash runs down. He uses a chair as a shield, seeing as Big Papa Pump wants to shove that bad boy up his rear end. And as a brawl breaks out between all four men, officials run down to break it up. Schiavone then announces that the Steiners are going to face Nash and Sting in our main event tonight. So WCW are still in the business of booking guys multiple times on a single night. And there's me thinking Vince Russo was all about pushing the young guys. The Rock defends his WWF title against Chris Benoit next on Raw. On Nitro, Booker T defends his world title against Lance Storm. Mike Awesome and his Big Bird Heidi take a seat at the commentary desk. Lance says he's going to go into New Blood Rising in Vancouver with every singles championship, and when Lance requests the Canadian national anthem to get played, he instead gets Booker T's entrance music. I don't know, Canada, you could maybe adopt this as your new anthem because it's a bit more upbeat and all, you know. Booker gets the audience all fired up, the crowd's chanting USA. Some bozo walks down the ring with a ton of ham sandwiches. Why, you may ask? Well, Mike ordered them for his girlfriend. Booker didn't take too kindly to Lance pie-facing him in the corner, so our Canadian hero takes a suplex. Book then has to fight out of a Canadian Maple Leaf attempt, and remember, Booker's got a knee injury. Storm's unable to hit a super kick, and Booker's able to deliver an axe kick and a Harlem sidekick, though Lance kicks out of two and the match continues on. Storm tries a crossbody, but he's caught out with a power slam. He stays on Booker though, and he locks in the Canadian Maple Leaf after falling on his ass. It's okay, Lance, we forgive you. The crowd chant USA as the hold gets locked in, and after a long struggle, Booker makes it to the bottom rope. Looks like Lance won't be winning the World Championship tonight, folks. Our match ends with a spine buster, a missile dropkick, and a bookend from the World Champion. And in my opinion, if Lance was never going to win this match, then he shouldn't have been booked in a world title match. They should have kept his win streak going, but what do I know? Jeff Jarrett's here because it's Jeff Jarrett and he knows how to ruin a good time. He goes right after Booker, but when he starts messing around with the Canadian flag and he breaks the flagpole over Booker's knee, Lance goes after him. This leads to Lance and Jeff fighting on the outside, and when Jeff tries a guitar shot, this happens. The mighty Heidi takes a shot and Mike Awesome's not happy. He's not happy at all. He chases Jeff into the ring where Jarrett ends up taking a bookend, and when Jeff gets backstage, he challenges Mike Awesome to a match. He also says he hit Mike's girl because he didn't have an hour to walk around her, which, yeah, okay, fair enough. That was probably the funniest thing Jeff Jarrett's ever said. On Raw, our no DQ WWF title match starts off with Rock appearing behind Benoit and laying the smackdown in the early going. The People's Champ takes it to Benoit, he brings the challenger down with a dragon screw, and he locks in that sharpshooter of his, which, as we all know, didn't look great. Shane McMahon breaks it up and Rock takes a jumping back elbow from the Boy Wonder, and Rock should have expected this really. Rock takes a few chops in the corner, he takes a back suplex before the two head outside. Benoit gets thrown into the ring steps, Shane makes sure Rock can't build any kind of momentum here, and we all know what's going to happen. Someone eventually is going to come out and help Rock even the odds, because Rock's going to lose his championship if this keeps up. Back in the ring, Benoit tries a backslide, but Rock counters with a crossface. Benoit breaks free and he goes for his German suplexes, but Rock counters again and he pulls off a release German suplex. This looked pretty good. The Great One then performs a belly to belly and Shane pulls the referee out, so it's time for Rock to fall for the old cat and mouse routine, and Benoit says that's it, it's all over. The Wolverine delivers his diving headbutt and he goes for the cover, Rock kicks out, and our match continues on outside the ring. Benoit gets thrown into Shane, and now that Simba's been neutralised, the Great One's going to try a people's elbow in the ring. He lands the move and he goes for the cover, only for Shane to wake up and the cover gets broken. So Rock attacks Shane as the crowd goes nuts, but this allows Benoit to take advantage and we see the crossface. The thing is, Rock's been put in this hold so many times and he survived the move so many times that I'm not expecting him to top out, and neither should you. Never worry though, because Rock gets some help in the form of Chris Jericho. The crowd's really happy to see Y2J and he wrecks Benoit with consecutive powerbombs on a steel chair. Shane tries to help Benoit, he gets chased out of the ring, and our match ends with Benoit taking a rock bottom and the Rock retains his WWF Championship. Looks like Benoit isn't ready for the big time just yet, and he takes it out on Mick Foley. He wants Jericho punished for what he did. So Mick says he's going to put Jericho in the ring with two world-class athletes tonight on Raw who could very well kick Y2J's ass. He's putting him in the Kurt Angle versus Triple H match, meaning we've now got a triple threat and Jericho has a chance to become #1 contender. Shane says this isn't a punishment, it's more like a reward, and Mick Foley says his ruling is final. Earlier on, Billy Kidman said he wanted to apologise to Torrie Wilson and he admitted to being a little insensitive. He said tonight should be considered Torrie Wilson Appreciation Night, and then later on he came out with some chocolates, champagne and some roses, hoping to get some forgiveness from his ex. Kidman wanted Torrie to come out so he could say sorry to her face, but this was all a ploy so Billy could play a tape featuring Torrie's sweet 16th birthday party. We have Torrie in makeup so she looks overweight, getting really excited about receiving a birthday cake. And do keep in mind that Mark Madden thought this was going to be another dirty video. A dirty video that he knew featured a 16-year-old girl. Yeah. Billy also arranged for copies of Torrie's high school photograph to fall from the ceiling. When Shane Douglas tries to put a stop to this, Billy takes him out, and when Torrie tries to break the champagne bottle over Kidman's head, she too gets wiped out. It's fucking wild. Reno then shows up to plant Billy on the mat. Reno made his debut on Thunder and he wasn't happy that Billy took his girlfriend, Siren, to the hotel room last week after that Viagra on a pole match. So Reno and Shane Douglas have a common enemy, and it all ends with Kidman getting whipped like a dog while Torrie tries to gather up those embarrassing pictures. Following this, we saw Chronic get their tag team belts back from the Filthy Animals. Disco Inferno caved and he handed the belts back on the condition that Chronic didn't hurt him. So the boys took their property back and Disco took the high times on top of his crappy car. I can't remember the last time Disco got booked in a match. Major Guns dragged Tagras to the mud pit while the Animals were busy with Chronic, though Miss Hancock showed up to help out the Nitro girl. The Major gets embarrassed here by these two ladies, and if this is your kind of thing, you can look forward to more mud pit mayhem at New Blood Rising. On Raw next, we've got a promo from Tazz while Nitro presents Mike Awesome vs Double J, and I'm pretty sure this is a match we have seen before, isn't it? Let me check. Actually no, it isn't. That's crazy. WCW is so messy that it's hard to keep up with who's fought who, and hey, the WWF are fond of rematches too, but the way they're booked makes it so easier to forgive. Like that Rock vs Benoit match. We have witnessed that one before, but you're interested in it thanks to the straightforward nature of the story. WCW right now is such a jumbled mess when it comes to rivalries and match bookings that you just don't care to keep track anymore. More chair shots on the outside here that the referee has absolutely no problem with. Jeff gets put down and this allowed Mike to set up a table. Another chair shot followed, though Jeff just shrugged it off as he went on offense for a while. But Mike delivered his back elbow inside the ring before signaling for the splash. Jarrett tries to stop it as we see Lance Storm standing on the entranceway. Not sure who Lance wants to attack here, seeing as Jarrett broke the flagpole and Lance is also facing Awesome this week on pay-per-view. We quickly find out though as Storm gets on the apron, and while the referee's distracted, Jarrett wraps a chain around his fist. Even though Mike takes a shot to the head right here, he still kicks out at 2. Lance then tries to stop an Awesome Bomb attempt and he pays for this by getting sent to the table. The table doesn't break, but it's alright, the production staff totally missed the bump anyway. And our match ends with Jarrett performing the stroke and Awesome does the JOB. Any Jeff Jarrett fans out there? Yeah? Are you enjoying his WCW run so far? Man, I take a little heat from folks who enjoy Jarrett's work, and hey, when he's on, and I don't think he's bad at all. But this WCW run's been truly awful, and I'm really struggling to see why people say it's fine. Tazz comes out on Raw and he gets a cheap pop by saying he's from New York. He then says all these people have fat kids, whereas Tazz has made it in the game of life. So yeah, boo the hometown boy, boo this man. Tazz says the fans have been preconditioned to boo him, and he blames this on Jim Ross. Good old JR called Tazz a piece of garbage at Fully Loaded, and he said Tazz was just another victim of the stink face last week on Raw. JR's been talking a lot of shit, and Tazz wants to mess him up. Tazz calls JR a redneck scumbag. This is enough to make Jim get to his feet. And after knocking Jim's hat off, Tazz says he'd like to slap JR's face, but it looks like God beat him to it. Yeah, that's pretty messed up. JR smacks Tazz. He totally deserved it, by the way. Tazz invites Jim to hit him again, but he doesn't need to. Jerry Lawler instead punches Tazz in the mouth, and the MSG crowd goes nuts when a fight almost breaks out between the two. Looks like we could be heading towards a Jerry Lawler vs Tazz program in the very near future. Before we look at our main events, the WWF put on a quick 6-man tag, Edge, Christian and Big Show versus the APA and Matt Hardy. And this would serve as the Big Show's final WWF match until 2001, because he was getting sent to OVW to lose weight and get better in the ring. It's not all bad though, because Show would get a look at the future when he worked with guys such as Batista and Brock Lesnar while in Louisville. We have a DQ finish here when Big Show uses a tag belt to wipe out the APA, and Show thought he was being a big tough man when he planted Matt Hardy with a powerbomb. The Undertaker then appeared, and he's here for retribution, not only for what Big Show did to him 2 weeks ago on Raw, but also for Big Show putting Kane through the SmackDown stage last Thursday. So Taker gets in the ring, he wipes Show out with his super combo. He then chases Shane McMahon up the ramp, and the Boy Wonder gets the safety with this smooth jump to the Raw's War Sidetron. Our boy fucking nailed it. Big Show tries to help Shane out. This turns out to be a mistake as Undertaker uses a chain to hurt the big man, and it all ends with Big Show getting thrown off the Raw stage as Shane looks on in disbelief. During a commercial break, Shane left the building in his limousine and he left Big Show all alone to receive medical attention. So there you go, bye bye Big Show, for now. Raw's main event features Kurt Angle, Triple H and Chris Jericho attempting to become #1 contender, while Nitro presents Kevin Nash and Sting versus the Steiner brothers. This is legitimately the Steiners' first recorded match together since breaking up back at Super Brawl 8 in 1998. I do enjoy Steiner tag team matches a whole lot, but you know the drill guys. Low expectations here, and just hope those expectations can get past just a little bit. Rick says, if you don't like me, bite me, while Scott says he's going to stick his boot up someone's rear end in this match. He's got a real thing for putting things up people's bums as of late, but never mind that, here comes Sting and Nash, former Wolfpack buddies and also former tag team champions. After the first exchange where Nash and Sting get the better of their opponents, the Steiners waste a ton, and I mean a ton, of time jaw-jacking fans at the front row. The match resumes with Kev and Nash attacking Rick in the corner, which really doesn't help matters, but Rick makes Kev work a little when he delivers a jumping Steiner line. Kev shakes it off, Rick takes a corner clothesline, in comes Sting with a top rope splash, and the Icon then has fun beating up both Rick and Scott in the opposition's corner. Scotty comes in and he has much more luck against Sting. That pole on a pole on a pole match must have filled him with confidence. Big Kev wants to ensure a fair fight and he stops Rick from choking Sting out, but the Steiners are working like a well-oiled machine here as they begin quick tags. Just realising here too that I much prefer the Steiners together as babyfaces as opposed to slimy bad guys. Nash gets the hot tag and he shows some good fire while taking Rick and Scott out. He doesn't manage a powerbomb however, and he ends up fighting Rick on the outside while Sting performs a stinger splash on Scott. The dog-faced gremlin gets jackknifed on the announce table while Scott locks in the recliner. It's at this very moment when Goldberg shows up and he takes Scott out with a forearm. This is enough for Sting to win the match, which is so dumb. And our match ends with Sting taking a spinning back kick before Nash squares up to Billy Boy. The show quickly fades to black when Big Papa Pump attacks Goldberg. I'm happy to see the Steiners in action again together as a team. I did have low expectations, so I'm not overly disappointed, though it still wasn't great. On Raw, Chris Jericho launched an early attack on Triple H while the game was in his locker room. Moments later, Hunter came storming out only to bump right into Kurt Angle. Kurt said Hunter needs some anger management classes, and Triple H told Angle to piss off. The Rock joins the commentary team for this main event and he witnesses Chris Jericho totally wrecking both of his opponents in the early going. Y2J makes it look easy as he sends Angle and Hunter out of the ring, and he keeps the pressure on with a missile dropkick to Hunter before applying the walls of Jericho to Angle. This makes Hunter smile a little, but the game knows he has to win the match, so he breaks up the move and he hits Jericho with a Harley Race knee. Both Angle and Triple H want a piece of Jericho. They can't really agree who should kick Y2J's ass, though Kurt does stand by while the game performs the facebreaker knee smash. He then breaks Hunter's cover and he puts him on the mat before delivering an overhead belly to belly, and we fall into familiar territory as Angle and Triple H stop each other from winning the match. If someone covers Jericho, it gets broken up right away. Jericho fires up a little, but his fire gets put out when he goes for a lion salt. He remains pretty determined though, and after countering a pedigree, he manages to hit both of his opponents at the same time with a double lion salt. To make Jericho pay for this, Angle and Hunter actually work together for a double suplex, and our match ends with both men covering Jericho and the ref counting to 3. The match is over. It looks like we have 2 winners. We don't get the official word here though, and Rock isn't sure who he's facing at SummerSlam. So he gets in the ring and he hits both Triple H and Angle with rock bottoms. When Stephanie slaps Rock, she too gets planted, something that really delights the fans in MSG. But this doesn't change the fact that we don't know who the number 1 contender is. The WWF's Monday night return to MSG was good. Raw wins Reliving the War this week. I tried my best to remain positive and upbeat about WCW, seeing as we have new Blood Rising this week, but it's a real struggle right now. There is moments here and there to get excited about, and you try to look at these upcoming matches with a little bit of enthusiasm, but it is tough right now because they just keep letting us down. I did find the Russo interview quite entertaining though, and hearing Vince speak in a more direct manner does let us see where his head's at, and although it might be in the clouds right now, it still gives us insight into what the head of creative was thinking when booking these shows. Raw's on 143 points, and yes, I screwed up the scores 2 weeks ago, but I don't think anyone noticed. Nitro's on 81, and we've got 23 ties. In the TV ratings, Raw scored a 6.3, Nitro scored a 2.5. New Blood Rising's our next pay-per-view, and that video goes live this Sunday. What's going to happen when Scott Steiner, Kevin Nash and Goldberg square off in the middle of the ring? It's going to be controversial. Booker T defends his world title against Jeff Jarrett, the Young Dragons face 3 count in a ladder match, and Lance Storm defends his his Canadian Heavyweight Championship in a special Canadian rules match at the pay-per-view. What is a Canadian rules match? Join me on Sunday and find out. Thank you very much for watching, I do appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed this one, and please take care.